Toot, toot. Ooh, it's time to ride the funk train. Now listen here, folks. This is Funk Master V of the TV show Wrestling with Ghosts. I'm a pro wrestler. I'm a booty shaker. I'm a lip smacker. And let me tell you, I love independent television. Now, Kat here at Paranormal Heart has let me talk to you for a second about Asy Television. ASY Television. Look it up. Soon it will be on Roku, Fire Stick, Apple TV, and online for a cheap, low price. You can watch hundreds and hundreds of shows, including scary shows like my own, Wrestling with Ghosts, or food shows like Go There, Eat That, Best Day Ever, the UFO show with Amy Dumas, the list goes on and on. It's AsyTV.com. Check it out now. ASYTV.
Welcome to Paranormal Heart, a place where people can talk about their paranormal experiences. With your host, Kat Ward, along with a special segment, Oddities with John Mallard.
Welcome back, folks, to Paranormal Heart. I am your host, Kat Ward. You can find me on the second and last Sunday of each month on Podbean and YouTube. You can also find me on sparkradionet.org, New Lantern Media Network, and anywhere you find fine podcasts. If you enjoy the show, please show your support by telling others about me. Hit that like button, share, subscribe, and follow. Well, folks, here in Canada, it's Thanksgiving weekend, and my household smells amazing with the delicious aroma of turkey slowly cooking. I can't wait. So happy Thanksgiving to those of you who celebrate it. This episode's shout-out goes to you amazing listeners in Guam. Thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate you all. In episode 45, my special guest is an intuitive, sensitive, and shamanic practitioner who provides shamanic healing as well as paranormal consulting. And he tells us about his journey that led him to shamanism. I introduce to you Leslie J. Hart. Hello, Les. Welcome to Paranormal Heart. Thanks so much for being here.
Hi, Kat. Thanks for having me.
I'm really happy that the audio finally decided to cooperate. Seems every time I record an episode, I always have audio issues for whatever reason. But here we are now, finally.
I'm glad it's worked out.
Yeah, like I said, I had to take out my piece of selenite and all is well. It's kind of strange. Oh well. So, you have some interesting, you and I had a nice long chat the other night, and very interesting, and I couldn't wait to start recording this. So please tell us about yourself and what you do and any experiences you've had.
Okay. Like I said before, I almost wish we recorded our first talk because that seemed to flow real easy, so no pressure, right? Yeah, my name, obviously, Leslie Hart, and I'm a shamanic practitioner. I've been doing that for about 11 years, I guess. I started traveling around 2010 to Alberta, Canada, and working with a group called Kamapi, and so they're my mentors, my teachers. Marv and Shannon Harwood there, that pretty much is where I got my start from. Although Elaine LaJoy, I have to credit too for pointing me in the right direction. She's another shaman, and she's located out in Portland, Oregon. And yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about what exactly shamanism is?
That's a that's a big topic, and I'll do my best because there's probably lots of perspectives and lots of takes on what shamanism is and isn't. But I can tell from what I know, shamanism is probably mankind's oldest spiritual practice. It likely predates anything like witchcraft or any of the other magical or kinds of spiritual work. And I only say that because I believe it's the the core or the root from which all things kind of sprung from. And we can find evidence of shamanic practices dating back over 20,000 years. So the word sometimes, shamanism, can sometimes create, especially among some indigenous groups, they might find the word, object to the word and not want their ceremonialist or their medicine person referred to as a shaman. But it's a catch-all word, and basically it's referring to those people who either were the spiritual leaders, the ceremonialist, or the medicine person, and this is like worldwide. So you find it in every culture, every indigenous culture around the world, and it just comes down to they'll have their own word for this person, but what this person does is pretty much kind of universal, right? Yeah.
So shamanism, and because as I had mentioned the other day, I'm sorry, my dog's little toes are ticking on the floor there. As I told you the other day, I didn't know a whole lot about shamanism, but I do know some people always would say that shamans and medicine people are the same, so they're not?
No, I would say they are. It's just when you talk to members of any indigenous group, they have their own word, they have their own name for the person who is the medicine person, who works on spirit level to heal. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that person may also be a ceremonialist, or maybe that's a separate position, depending on how things are run. But I'm just saying that that word itself sometimes, some circles may object to it because it's not specific to any one group. It's a universal term.
Okay.
And shamanism in general, we're talking about animism, working with animal totems, animal spirits. It's very earth-based. You're talking about what we call the journey. So it's like a guided meditation that is universal within the shamanic practices, and it's through this journey that information's obtained. Work is done on different levels, energy levels. So yes, that part of it doesn't matter where you go in the world or what tribe you're talking to. They know what you're talking about. They just may not like. It's like, no, our person's called this, and it's like, okay.
Okay. So it's the same thing, just they would use different words for it.
Pretty much. And I would say that, there's the modern day shamans or Western shamans who like myself, didn't grow up within a community, an indigenous community, and didn't begin training until later in life. Um, and that can be, it's unfortunate in a way, because I think people like myself who come to shamanism, especially later in life, it's like we didn't have the guidance at a young age. And though anyone can practice it, there are those who get called to it. And for example, with myself, when I was little, I used to have dreams of bears. And the bears were always trying to get me. And I was always afraid of the bear, right? And that's just a recurring dream or nightmare that would go on, on and off throughout my life. And I've later discovered that particular dream would have been an indication that, hey, this person is being called, so let's help them. Let's not let them keep suffering, with nightmares about being mauled to death by bears, So, and actually to see the bear in a different way as like an ally, like it's there to work and wants to teach us something.
So was the bear in your dream you thought was trying to chase you, but was he trying to just make you realize that you have a calling and he was trying to get you to go with him? Would that be accurate to say, or am I totally off the mark?
No, I think, like myself, if I shared that dream when I was younger, and if I was in like an indigenous community, someone probably would have recognized the dream and the recurring nightmare and say, well, we know what this is, and it's not just a random nightmare. It means something. So let's start, helping this young person so they're not, because as a kid, I don't know what that's about. I understand looking back at it, I feel that it was a significant part of being called to this, but I never knew. I just knew I was terrified.
That would be terrifying as a child, and not having the right people around you to explain to you what was going on.
Yeah, and bears are scary just in general. So.
They are.
They really are. So.
They're cute, but they're scary.
Oh yeah.
We in my town here, we have lots of black bear, and they walk around. Every once in a while, you'll see one on the main street here. Last month, there was a big announcement going around saying the street next to mine, parallel to mine, there were bear sightings. So they're telling people to make sure you watch your children and your pets, and don't approach them.
Right.
So
right.
yeah, they can be pretty scary.
Another saying that's in the shamanic community, especially I would say, like, I don't know, like the Western shamanic community, is like they refer to it as like the path of the wounded healer. So in other words, when you're called to be a shaman, sometimes like your life just gets upended. Some people become really sick. They almost have like a near-death experience. Other people, there's always some kind of tragic events, tragedy that happens, and it kind of cuts you off from your old life. So it's like the bridge has been burned, and like there's no, you can't go as much as you want to. You can't go back. And I had mentioned to you, for me, back in '09, I had lost my son. And so that changed my world. And then a little while after, I lost my career as a firefighter, which is the two things that I defined myself as. I was a dad and I was a firefighter. Now those the two major things that defined me were now, like, I was no longer either, really. I mean, I'll always be my son Tim's dad, but I mean, he's not here, so that role has changed, and firefighting is a huge part of how I define myself. That was gone. So now it's like, well, who am I now? I don't know. you know, and those were really dark times for me. So in my searching for how am I going to go forward, through a kind of a bunch of really cool synchronicities, I got guided to shamanism. And I kind of credit this spiritual path to kind of saving my life at the time, because I can only tell you that was like the darkest time of my life, and I didn't know how I was going to go forward, and I didn't know if I even really wanted to back then.
It's a good thing that you were looking to redefine yourself and found this path.
I feel really lucky and blessed, and it's opened up. It's changed my life. Well, I mean, the events, of course, changed my life, but shamanism has changed my life, and it's, for my friends and family, they may kind of, well, I'm not the same in a way, right? It's like, they may think he's a little nuts now or a little crazy, right? Because I'm not doing the normal things that everyone does or used to do, and it's difficult sometimes to even explain what is it that I'm doing or what is this about, and it sometimes would be some jokes or some funniness in the family, or like, oh, he's doing that or this, but it also set me on this adventure, and I started traveling all around the country, up, back and forth to Canada. I've been to so many places, and with the path and with the learning and attending as many workshops and classes as I could, there's always been experiences, and so I feel like I might have like a great deal of supernatural experiences or what have you, just because of the path that I've chosen to be on, or it chose me, or whatever, and the places that I've gone to visit. So there's been a ton of different things that have happened along the way.
Do you feel that perhaps you mentioned the wounded warrior? Do you think perhaps if you would have been raised in a community where they had shamans and medicine people, that perhaps the tragedies that made you take a different path, maybe those wouldn't have occurred?
That's a great question. What immediately comes to my mind is I had watched a video on YouTube, and it's about, I think it's called A Real Shaman, or the title. And so if you look for like a real shaman, or it's about an Inuit shaman. And so it's even subtitled, so whatever language they, Eskimos or those they speak. A couple people doing the documentary went there, and they interviewed him. And in their culture, even before he was born, they knew he was going to be a shaman. Like they knew, I don't know how, but they knew. And he started talking about certain taboos, and like his mother, she couldn't eat or have certain things, and when he was born, there were other taboos about the foods he would eat, and all these little rules, things that almost seem like superstitions. But he explained that these taboos or rules, whether they seem kind of like crazy, like don't do this on a certain day, but that they actually worked. And the point of me bringing up him is, when I listen to his story, there's a lot of things that happen to both of us saying the same thing. So this shaman, he also lost his son. And you can, even in the interview, he was still he was very emotional talking about it. And in his culture, when he talked about little people, and they were kind of like spirit helpers, but I think he could actually see them on our plane. And so, and you'll find little people. I mean, that's kind of almost cross culture. These Celtic traditions,
Yep.
very gnome realm. Uh, Indigenous Native Americans, they all talk about little people, whatever they are exactly. So when he lost his son, he lost his ability to see the little people. He lost his gifts.
Hmm.
He went into a really dark space. And then he talks about, like, after however much time grieving, could have been years, he said that he started to see them again. And he was like, like dancing. He's like, joy, joy.
Hmm.
And so to me, that meant that his vibration, his energy, his depression and the pain lowered his vibration to such a point where he he was apart, and he thought that they had left him, they abandoned him, but it was because his vibration, he was in so much suffering that he was apart from the spiritual realms, he was apart from his gifts. And it wasn't until joy and happiness came back into his being, then suddenly he could see them again, and it's like, and then they were back, and so were his gifts.
That's really interesting because I have heard of people losing their gifts over tragedies before, and then after they were in a better place and they were able to get their abilities back, and that makes sense because of the vibration shifted. So, like you said, the little people, they didn't abandon him. He was just at a different level and didn't see them. That's really interesting.
It is, and I think of the little people as just like one aspect of the whole variety of spiritual beings and ways that we might receive messages from all kinds of different areas. And to my knowledge and from what I understand, the spirit realm operates on a higher frequency, a higher vibration than we do as humans. And if we're so sad and so heartbroken, and so then we just sink into a lower space, it's like the other side may be trying desperately to help us, but they can only lower that vibration to a point. It's up to us to kind of bring ourselves back up to meet somewhere in the between.
That's a good way of explaining it. I like that.
Yes.
It enables someone to understand it a little bit better. Can you tell us about some of the, forgive me if I'm not using the correct terminology, I can't even think of the word now. Sorry, I'm gonna have to edit this part because I can't remember the word.
What are you searching for?
I wish I could just go into my mind so you could see what I'm trying to envision. Ceremonies, that's it.
Ceremonies, yes, because I had jotted down we were going to talk about maybe ceremonies and rituals, and also animals.
Yes.
And how they play into shamans, right? Because
Indeed.
you can't separate animals from shamanism, really.
Well, like I told you the other day, I always pictured shamanism and animals, just they automatically go hand in hand.
Absolutely. I would love to. I wish. I don't know how long we have to talk, because there's there's these subjects that are, to me, they're exciting, and I just want to like explore it even further. So is it that you want to talk about the ceremonies at this moment?
Sure. Yes, please.
Ceremonies and ritual.
Mm-hmm.
Well, ceremony and ritual, that's where you get a lot, where you get specific, often to a certain region of the world, a certain tribe, a certain group of indigenous people, because they all have their own unique ceremonies and their own unique rituals. I'm dear to, well, what's dear to me is a lot of Plains Indian, Native American traditions, and just that I've always, that's where my teachers, I mentioned in our other conversation, they spent 15 years with two Blackfoot elders. And what an opportunity. And those two elders, they were sharing with my teachers because at the time, there wasn't a great interest by the people in the old ways. And they knew that if they didn't share a lot of this knowledge, that it would be lost forever, right? So my areas of that I'm most familiar with would be Plains Indian, specifically. This come through the Blackfoot line, the Blackfoot Indian, and South American Peruvian shamanism. So as far as ceremony, like I'll talk more about the Peruvians who come from the Andes, and there's Alberto Volaldo, who is kind of credited with bringing that type of shamanism to the Western world, and he has the Four Winds Society, which has really spread the foundation and kind of really explained to a Western audience what shamanism is about and all the teachings. He's adapted it, so a lot of it isn't traditional. But let's say one ceremony, for example, that's really big with the Peruvian shamans is called a despacho ceremony. And so in a despacho, at the center of it is usually like an apple, and they say a tiki or a manzana, and then they put, if you cut an apple in half, you see like a star, right? And so everything's got this symbology, and then within the apple they place some pretty flowers, and this is laid out on like some construction paper, like plain wrapping paper, but construction paper, whatever. Yep. And so from that center, they will build out from that using lots of candies and cookies and sweets. And the despacho is always divided into hemispheres of the masculine and the feminine. They're always balancing the masculine and feminine energies. And it's everything to do with the elementals, everything to do with the earth. So they'll incorporate Mama Kocha, the water, the Koichi, the rainbow. So rainbow for the Peruvians is this wonderful protection, right? And they'll incorporate like cotton for like clouds. And so as they're building this, it's almost like levels of like world levels. Like you could think of like an underworld, a middle world, which is the earth, and a higher world, which is spirit. And if you look at the despacho, it kind of goes up on levels, and everything is based on the Mother Earth being the feminine, and the Apus, the mountains, being the masculine side of things. They use coca leaves and llama fat, and you blow your intentions, your prayers, whatever it is that you wish that you wish for someone's health, or you're asking for something for yourself. You blow it into the coca leaves, the kintu, and then they're placed in this arrangement, and it just grows. And there's all the candies and sweets are for Pachamama. Apparently she has a sweet tooth, because there's everything, all these cookies and things. It's like a feast. And so when this ceremony is concluded, they say take pictures, and it's a happy time, and they might do a few flute songs and blow a conch shell and ring bells, and so whoever's attending it, all these prayers are put into the despacho, and then it's folded up. The people who are present, they'll kind of do a cleaning thing where you get wiped down, and like any bad hucha, any negative energy, that they're giving it to dispatcher because negative energy in this tradition is like, this is food for Mother Earth. She's just going to eat it up.
Oh,
So
nice.
you got heavy energy, she wants it. It's, you think, who wants that crap? But Mother Earth, she's going to transmute it. So clean yourself up with the dispatcher, and then it's almost always followed by a fire ceremony. There is one where you can bring it to like water, but usually fire is the primary way, or the next step. And so you bring it to fire, and when it burns, it's like then all those prayers and all the intentions that were put into it are released. The food is released for the earth to consume, and the prayers are released in this beautiful fire ceremony, and it's a celebration. So I mean, and that's just one ceremony, but it's a beautiful ceremony, and that's pretty integral to that tradition, right?
How long will that ceremony generally last?
Well, the dispatcho might take maybe an hour to put it together, depending on how big a group of people, and everybody wants to bring their prayers into the mix, and they receive blessings during it, but it's a happy celebration, and it can be, and sometimes they coincide with different, it could be a solstice, it could be an equinox, it could be whatever you need to celebrate, and then what's created with the flowers and the design, there's hundreds of different ones, but the foundation, the core of it, is always this elemental and this balancing in the masculine and feminine. It's so no matter what it ends up looking like, you can always see there's certain things that are always going to be part of it. So it's a beautiful tradition.
After what did you call it again when they put everything together in the construction paper?
Yeah, so that's called a dispatcher.
Dispatcher, okay.
Dispatcher.
Do they burn that afterwards, or?
Yes, that's
okay.
So if you think about dispatching, right? Mm-hmm. So you're building it, and then you dispatch, or dispatcho goes to fire, and fire is, that's going to transmute all of that through the, and of course, even all the elementals are everything that's earth-based, everything that's elemental, everything that concerns the animals. All of this is integral to shamanism, no matter where you go in the world. These are core principles, core things. You can't separate shamanism from Mother Earth, and Peruvians, they call it Pachamama. It's they're integral, they're interchangeable.
Like we were saying the other day, what's fascinating with paranormal and supernatural and all that is, no matter the culture around the world, everyone has the same story. Just might be a little variant on it, called a different name, or whatever. And it seems to be the same way with shamanism as well. It's just so fascinating how everyone seems to be connected with beliefs, even though there was a time that no one was able to communicate from one end of the globe to the other, so to have all these similarities is just fascinating.
That is a great point, because no matter where you go in the world, and you might get some people who you want to argue, but if you look at the core principles, and I don't care if you go to Africa, Australia, what is left of any European, like Celtic kind of traditions or what have you, North America, South America, all of them recognize the cardinal directions, right? There's a thing that we do is called opening sacred space, and witchcraft will do a form of this. So it's calling in the cardinal directions.
Yep.
the Andean people and the Plains Indian people do this almost identical, yet they were separated by thousands of miles, right? Maybe 3,000, 4,000 miles, not really interconnected, but not only the cardinal direction, but each direction has an animal representative, right? So, with the two that I'm familiar with, in let's say Peruvians, they begin opening directions facing the south, and for them the south is the serpent, Sachamama. Plains Blackfoot and other Plains Indians, they always started in the east. Modern day Plains Indian, they might start in the west now, but originally everyone began in the east. And I think that that's a whole conversation in itself. But in the east, because that's the place of the rising sun, the new day. Everything is also based on the cycles, the seasons. You can't get away from the wheel. You can't get away from the circle. These are all core principles of all these traditions. So with the Blackfoot, the one that I'm familiar with, it's eagle is in the east. Condor would be the Peruvians. In the south, Sachamama, the snake, mother serpent. The Blackfoot would use white-tailed deer as the animal representative. In the west being, so, and you think about it, we're also moving in the seasons. So the east, we're starting in the spring. The south, we're looking at summer, right? When you look to the west, now this is like the fall. And in both traditions, one uses like the jaguar or the puma, the South American. Blackfoot does use the bear. And they all have their words. So Otarango is the jaguar, and Stunatops is the scary one. So instead of using Gallo for the bear, they say Stunatops because it's out of respect, because he's bad, right? He's scary. Don't mess with the bear. So, and they're both representatives of the West, and in the West is also where the idea of the Rainbow Bridge, the crossing from this realm to the other. And for example, the bear or the jaguar or the puma, those archetypal energies are there to help us face our fear. So when we work with those animals, they're helping us face our fears, not fear death, not operate from a place of fear. So each animal, and then I'd be remiss and then go to the north. They would talk about Serikente, the hummingbird. The Blackfoot would be Umakastu, the raven, the big black bird. And usually in the north is also the Apus, or the mountains, the wise ones. They all look to the earth, Pachamama. Blackfoot is Nina Pistatoki, the mother, and then to the heavens. So they all recognize the moon, Peruvians, Mama Kia, the great mystery, the creator, whatever that is, the universe. Recognize that as well. The angelic realm. They also always, almost universally, recognize star nations, star beings. So what we would say, aliens, right? But it's our star brothers and sisters is not like just for TV or alien stuff. This is part of their tradition. The sky nations, the star nations, and it's built into the creation story that we come from the stars, and that's where we will return to when we pass one day. This is part of their belief system, part of their the culture.
And if I'm not mistaken, they found pictographs in caves and with star people.
Yes. I've been to a few different locations where there's petroglyphs. Most famous ones, I guess we would say, is in New Mexico and in that four-state area. Is it Chaco Canyon, what have you? But what I would say is I haven't visited there, but I have been in seen different petroglyphs in Arizona, and also in near Dinosaur, so Colorado Utah border up in the north. And I took photographs of those petroglyphs, and there's no denying that they're aliens. They're not. I mean, there's a face with two little antennae. I mean, you know what it is. I mean, you can't mistake what the hell that is. You know, it's an alien, and I don't know what some anthropologists or whatever want to call it, but you know it's an alien. So just stop and that's what it is, right?
Yeah.
A fascinating thing I would like to add about that, because I've been to Peru and I've been over Nazca, and in Nazca, whenever you see a primate or anything human-like, there's something interesting. It has to do with, you see 4 fingers on one hand, even a monkey, and 5 on the other.
Really?
Right. And it's not an accident. It's not like they forgot what thumb looks like, right? It's on all the. So in Nazca, there's these enormous, whatever the word, I think of the word, but it's always 5 and 4 fingered. So I a few years back, I'm up in what is Colorado, where Dinosaur is, and I see some of the petroglyphs, and there's a star being, and it's got 5 and 4 fingers.
Wow.
And I'm like, how the hell does that? Why? You know what I mean? Like, this isn't just something little. This 5 and 4 combination is also present down there, and you might see it. And it might not be on everyone, but there's something about. I wanted to say almost like a hybridization between a 5-fingered and a 4-fingered being, and it's both in North and South America, which that's amazing.
That's fascinating. I'm gonna have to look into that.
Yeah, I'm sure I could. I got maybe some pictures on my page or whatever, just so I'm not just telling stories. It's true.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you have an animal spirit guide, or if you're able to mention if you do have one?
That's really an interesting subject, and I think people who are first coming to shamanism or just whatever you're some type of spiritual pursuit, everybody kind of wants to know, well, what's my spirit animal, right? So,
yeah,
because everybody kind of has at least one, right? And we might do a journey, or we would do a journey, and in the journey we would find what your spirit animal is. There's some beliefs that say you have one at birth, which you know, we may. There may be a spirit animal that wants to work with you now at this point in your life, for whatever reason, because each one is I'll just refer to it as an archetypal energy that has certain attributes and traits. And we know animals, unlike us, they're born and they know who they are and what they are and how to behave. Right? You don't have to tell a bear or an eagle or any animal how to behave or what their song is or what they do. Humans, we don't even know. We don't have any of that, right? We have to figure it out. So they already know who they are, and so we can find out what your power animal is, what spirit animal is working with you, and like I said, and it can change, and there's also probably a bird. Shamans, we all have like a cat.
Really?
Now this would be referred to as like a tracking cat.
Mm-hmm.
And so we all use a cat. Now, when I say cat, it may be just your house cat.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you see this in witchcraft too. Your familiars and whatever, the cat. But usually in shamanism, we might be a little more like a jaguar or
Mm-hmm.
a panther. You know, some badass cat, right? Big cat or lion or whatever it is. And we'll use that cat, that big cat, to go into, let's say, a world, to go find something, to go find somebody, maybe on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Some realms are not really safe. You might call like the stone people realm or whatever. There's different realms where it may not be safe for us as humans to enter into. So, you know, like earthbound spirits or whatever, or these realms that aren't really of the higher vibration. They're kind of a lower, whatever you want to refer to it as. So using the cat, it's like a disguise, and then that cat can slip in and out of these realms and not be harmed or affected, if you follow what I mean. And they have this innate ability, you know, like, so if you're trying to, let's say someone passed and you want to, well, and you don't think that they've ascended or whatever, and you want to know, well, what's going on? What, are they stuck somewhere? Is some, you know, you can use the cat to find them or find something, and then come back to you, and it's like, now you have this information. Right?
That reminds me of ancient Egypt and the cat. They say the cat has a foothold in the other world and our world, like in the, so they can see when, I can't remember the name of the place, but they can see dead people, like once like the spirits, they can see the spirits, but they also have a foothold in our world as well. So that kind of reminds me of that as well. That's really interesting. And it's a cat.
It's a cat. I don't know why. I know I'm staying at my friend's, Vicky's, and her cat seems to see things all the time.
Yep.
You know, always seeing something. Like, and usually, if you take a picture, there's some orbs or something funny going on. But yeah, it's said that they see. With shamans, at least in the tradition that I was a part of, with the Peruvian part, there are 4 animals that are like seeds planted within we refer to it as our luminous body. So as part of these rites, I do have like 4, and so it's the serpent, the jaguar, the condor or eagle, and I did it out of order, and the hummingbird is actually the 3rd, and then the 4th one would be condor or eagle. So the first chakras, when you think of your chakras within the teachings that I've been part to, those first 4 are those 4 animals that have been kind of implanted as seeds, and each one is an animal that you build a relationship with, because it's going to assist you in your work and assist you with your own. And a big part of shamanism, especially the Western version of shamanism, is it's called the way of the wounded healer, right? So we can't really help someone to heal themselves until we've done our own work. So we have to heal ourselves. And these animals, these spirit guides, these archetypal energies, they help us to achieve certain healing processes. For example, the serpent, when we work with the serpent, that's helping us, and it's in the south, to shed things that no longer serve us.
Ah.
Right?
Like,
so
like the serpent sheds its skin.
Serpent sheds its skin. So we're taking these old wounds, these traumas, and using serpent as an ally to help us release and let go of things that we don't need to carry with us anymore.
Hmm.
In the West, we're using, and I'm speaking of the Quechua, the Peruvian Andes tradition, not the Amazonian, but the mountain shamans, and I'm referring to the Quechua people, the Queros, Quero, and so in the West, we're working with Jaguar, and that's helping us not to fear, to face our fears and to face death, and to not let the fear of death, just it's freeing and it's empowering when we're not always afraid and we're not in that fight or flight mode anymore. The North, Serikente, the hummingbird, is teaching us to be present in the moment. Right? Teaches us, not to worry about what happened before, which is regret, or to fear what's going to happen tomorrow, right? Because that hasn't happened yet, and it's teaching us. The hummingbird is like stillness in motion, so it's present, right? And it's in the moment, and that's really all we have is this moment. Right? And the hummingbird, there's all these lessons. So the hummingbird likes to drink from the sweetness of life, right? You can't really cage a hummingbird, and it doesn't want to be around negative things. It wants to be around beauty. The hummingbird does its travel, its great migration, and it shows us that it doesn't pack a suitcase when it leaves from South America and comes north in the springtime. You know what I mean? It doesn't worry about that stuff. It knows that its spirit is going to provide for it. So it doesn't have to pack a big suitcase and bring all its stuff and worry about where's the next meal. The Mother Earth is going to provide for that. And such a little animal, right? Such a little animal makes this great, sometimes 3,000, 4,000 miles. How is that even possible for something so fragile and tiny, right? But yet it does every year. And the other, and then just going clockwise, everything's clockwise. So eagle or condor. So in Peruvian they call it apuchin. Blackfoot referred to eagle as pita. And there's also a very old prophecy about the eagle and condor. But what eagle and condor show us is the big picture, because they fly closest to spirit. So, often when we're in our everyday lives, we can only see what's in front of us. We can't see how we're going to get through a certain problem or crisis, or how we can only see so far. And when we can work on the mythic level, and using these great birds, suddenly we get like a panorama of, you can see everything, every option, every possibility that we don't see normally. And then it's like all these opportunities and possibilities suddenly open to us that we didn't know were there, because we couldn't know from our vantage point, right? And another universal property about the eagle and condor is that we'd be in a time, which I think it's a time we're now, where the two birds would share the same sky. So the eagle has always represented the masculine, kind of, you think of like the United States or whatever, and not very good about sharing space and being very, I mean? And it can also represent Western ways, and the condor is kind of like the feminine, indigenous ways. And it's like so it's metaphor, and it's on many levels. So it's like if we can have the eagle and the condor share the same sky, and bring in the belief system and the practices that were stomped out by the indigenous people, and their connection to the earth, right? Their I'm not thinking of my word, but it's the idea that all life All life is sacred. Um, it's an egalitarian belief system. That's the word I'm looking for. Egalitarian, right? So the Lakota have a phrase, and it's kind of like, it's been so caught on, everybody hears Metakli Oasin, right? You're all my relatives, right? And that's referring to not just men and women of different races and colors and countries, but you're all my relations, all living life. We're all related. We're all part of Mother Earth. Right? So that kind of belief system, and in this prophecy, would hopefully be able to share the same space, the same sky as our Western capitalistic, gotta make the money kind of belief system, right? And hopefully they can both share that sky. And in many ways, it's it's the indigenous people or their teachings that are coming to the surface so much more nowadays, right? They're the ones that are often leading the cries to stand against something that's harmful, a pipeline, or something that's doing damage, or clear cutting a forest, or whatever it is. And it's that love of the earth and wanting to be an earth keeper, an earth protector, a steward of the planet. That is core to shamanism, because we view our job as protectors of the planet. We only have this one planet. I know Elon Musk is going to try to redo Mars, but who knows when that'll be, right? Let's not crap up this one.
Probably won't be in our lifetime.
Hard to say, but it's like, you're going to invest into making a desert burnt out planet. When we have this beautiful planet here that it's like, fix this one, help this one, never mind trying to terraform Mars, which we probably started out there at one point and came here, just leaving a path of destruction through the solar system.
Maybe that's what the black holes are. Humans have been there, destroyed it, and moved on.
Yep. Crazy.
Well, we're just about at the end.
Already?
Yeah, it's been an hour already.
Jesus, we didn't even get warmed up.
Do you have any final thought? I would love to have you back, because I know there's so much more that you can tell us. And an hour show just can't hold it. Can't hold it all.
Oh, yeah, especially when I get long-winded and on these storytelling times.
Oh, no, that's great.
Yeah, I feel like we didn't even scratch the surface here of what I would like to share with you.
Well, we can actually keep going if you'd like. This is going well. We can keep going.
That's up to you if you want to.
No, let's keep going.
If you want to keep going, or maybe you can cut this up into a few sandwiches and something to.
Part 1, part 2.
Yeah. I actually, a friend of mine, we did a podcast 3 years back, and we had to do 2 parts, and it has to do with a prophecy that I had that had come to me in one of my shamanic journeys, and a personal project that I've been trying to further over the years, and it actually took 2 just to even explore that topic.
Oh, wow.
So
yeah, if you have the time, I have the time, we can keep going.
Well, yeah, why don't we go on a little bit more and
I just didn't want to keep you, but no, like I said, you have the time, let's go.
All right. No, I enjoy this stuff, and I'm happy to have the opportunity to talk about these things.
Well, I'm happy to have you here, and like I've mentioned a few times before, it's just opened my eyes, and you're educating me a little bit more on what shamanism is, and because I've had a basic knowledge, but I didn't really know much about it.
And when I talk about it, I'm constantly learning. I have a general idea of what it means. And when we talk about when we're talking about shamanism, we're, in many ways we're trying to remember things that's been lost. You know, in North America, there's pockets of information that still exist. But I mean, there was such a concerted effort made to wipe out the spiritual practices and the knowledge of Native Americans, right? So they had to go underground, and through genocide and everything that took place, this. And if I may just talk about them for a moment,
Of course, yes.
they are as all indigenous groups are, they're an oral tradition. When we talk about an oral tradition, a people that their history is living, it's always alive through the voices and through the story the tellers and the keepers. So there are certain safeguards built in. One, in the integrity of how that information is kept and relayed over generations and never lose its integrity. But there's also, there's certain people that are entrusted to maintain a specific piece of information or knowledge, right? And if they die and they don't have their predecessor in line, well, then that's been lost. Chances are forever. In a way, and then there's also, of course, the wound, and then the resentment of what has been done, and then you see today maybe there's people like who aren't from the indigenous community who want to know certain things, and it's like you did everything, and it's so like that back and forth, like your people in the past did everything to destroy it, and now you want to know these things, and and sometimes someone might think it's for money, but I believe that it's in this a lot of the indigenous knowledge that it's like it survives in pockets and it's pieces, and it's like going across the prairie, picking up little pieces of scraps of paper and looking, because it was like a beautiful book that was shredded to pieces, and most of it's and trying to like gather up I try to gather up little bits of knowledge, because I feel there's beauty in that, and it's like humanity's way forward is most likely in the teachings and belief systems, those egalitarian beliefs that have, for the most part, barely survive, and ancient knowledge that's been lost. Like, can you imagine if today, if our civilization gets wiped out in some way, there's something that happens, and all the technology and all the things that we know and we take for granted, right? And then we got to start over. It's kind of, to me, I think it's a little bit like that with the shamanism, in that we had thousands of years of knowledge and information and connection that, if it was in colonialism all over, and the furthering of religion that had to crush it and convert and change it. So it's like we may never know what was lost and what that knowledge truly was, right? But we know, like, for our own culture, if everything got wiped out today, how many of us can make a cell phone?
Yeah.
Right? Or I don't know how to make anything. There's people out there, but they're few and far between, right? We would be right back to almost caveman. Sometimes I watch these dystopian movies and think, oh, that would be, if anything really went bad. I mean, most of us don't know how to do or create most of these things, right? So
I'm thinking of the TV series The Walking Dead, for example, and trying to get a community back together so you could survive easier and learn how to fend for yourself. And just learning how to make food sometimes can be challenging. Just trying to remember how to build things, only a certain amount of people would have that knowledge.
That is like so true. Like most of us don't know how to plant a garden or grow our own food. Half of us don't even know how to cook anything but a hot pocket for dinner. It's like
I can't start a fire. My husband and kids can, but I can't start one. So,
so we'd all be screwed basically for the most part, right? If
Yeah.
we lost our, the system that sustains us. So my point, I guess, in a long-about way, is that thousands of years went on and knowledge was built over these generations and handed down and expanded upon.
Mm-hmm.
And then it got like one of these dystopian movies, just obliterated. So someone like myself or others who are on this path, we're like trying to gather these, this information, gather this knowledge, and build upon it, and kind of put it back, grow it from what has been still remained through the years. And it's really hard to do, especially depending. The Peruvian tradition is unique because they somehow managed to retain a lot of their traditions, a lot of their knowledge. And there's a whole story about that they went into hiding, and somehow they avoided the conquistadors. They were up in the mountains, and they just kind of out of sight, out of mind, and they weren't evangelized and all that. And something, and in their story, there was like an earthquake in the 50s, and it revealed one of the sacred sites, and then they knew it was their time to come back, and then start sharing what they knew with the world. That's the story that I've been told. And so they do seem to have a lot of that ancient knowledge still with them.
That's interesting. I just had a question and I just lost it.
There it went. It's gone.
Yes.
You had asked me about ceremonies, and I never
Yes.
never mentioned about the Plains Indian, just as a few. I don't know if that has anything to do with the thought that came through your mind.
It was.
It was.
Yes.
Awesome. So, was there a particular ceremony that comes to your mind that you had a question about, or that you were thinking of?
No, just I was mentioning earlier that in our conversation that when we spoke the other night, that I sage my house just to cleanse the house, just to get rid of all the negativity and everything. Is there something like that shamans use as well?
Of course, yeah. That's smudging is
Pretty much universal, I think.
it's universal. And so when we're talking about smudging, we're talking about plant medicine, right? And depending on where you are in the world, you have different plants that are available. It's said, right, that for every ailment and condition and sickness, there's a plant that can help to heal it, right? And smudging, the Peruvian tradition, the mountain shamans, they use Florida water a lot in ceremony and a lot in cleansing. They also use Palo Santo.
Yes.
And if you ever smelled Palo Santo, it's beautiful. The aroma of it. So they'll burn Palo Santo. This may be some other. There's a moss that they may use. It just smells amazing. An incense, but it's almost made from a moss stick. It's beautiful. And the Florida water. So it's flower essence in the water, and use like an alcohol base and some other things, and it's got like this beautiful, beautiful scent. And generally, they'll put a little bit in their mouth, and they'll spit it on you, or mist it on you, not spit it on you, but
Yes.
they'll mist it, right? That's one way, and uh, that was one of the things my family freaked out. I was like, "You're going to spit on me?" And say, "No, I'm not really going to spit on you. I'm just going to mist the alcohol, right? It's not spit." But anyways, and then use a feather to, like in the Plains Indian tradition. So they use that for smudging. In North America, you usually see like sage, cedar, and you always see like sweetgrass too being used.
I love the
ceremony.
smell of sweetgrass.
Right. And so like the cedar and the sage generally are to send away or to clear, plant medicine to clear any negative energy, or just to kind of clean house in general of whatever's around. And then the sweetgrass is generally to call in the ancestors or the relatives, right? It's like
That I
it's like
didn't
a
know.
calling in. Yeah. Not to scare anyone, but to call in those energies, those beings.
I was told once by a Native American or Native Canadian, I guess, saying that because there's different sages, like in Canada, white sage, I can't remember the others, and he told me that wherever you're located, any smudging with sage works, but you should try and use what's native to the area that you're in.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something also similar to shamanism?
Well, that
Try and use what's native to that area.
well, that particular thing, I you got me thinking a little bit. It's that maybe more for the land.
Yes.
So let's say you were trying to cleanse an area of some land for whatever reason. It might, maybe there's something going on some property, some land. Maybe this land had that a house is on, but maybe it's on a burial ground. Maybe it's on something that a battle zone, a battlefield, or whatever. So that might make sense to use what was native to the area as kind of it's going to be more because it's from the area, if you think of it in that sense.
Has a little more oomph, a little more juice to it.
Possibly.
A little more power.
There's not a whole lot of rules in Western shamanism as far as absolutes in anything, because it seems like you can make all these conditions and rules and say but almost always you'll find a curve. So I try never to speak in total absolutes about anything, because sure enough you'll find something that an exception, right?
An exception to every rule, pretty much.
There's always some little curveball out there, and we just don't always know. We don't know what we don't know. So one thing that with shamanism and plants, plant medicine is an integral part of healing work. And everything that's splintered off of core shamanism, like various forms of witchcraft or earth-based witchcraft, or I keep calling that, but I mean there's so many branches that came from this original tree. And around plant medicine, there's the knowledge that gets handed down over generations. But you wonder, like, how did the first person ever know what medicine did, right?
I've had this discussion with several people before.
So either there were a lot of people, guinea pigs that were lined up and say, we're going to give this to Mikey and see if he likes it or not. See what happens. I was like, oh, that didn't work out so good. Sorry, Mikey. You know, he didn't make it. You know,
Need another Mikey.
you know, and who's going to volunteer next? What? There's no more volunteers. How come? So, with the...
Kind of like, sorry to cut you off there, it's sort of like the other day I could tell my dog wasn't feeling well because she was outside eating grass. Animals tend to do that. Well, how do they know to do that?
That's a question I don't know. But what I do know is if we watch animals, we can learn.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of indigenous people going back, and humanity as far back as probably ever that we can remember, is by watching the animals. Nature is our oldest teacher. It always has been. Why? I don't know why. I just know it is, and I just know that we can learn from the animals. We can learn from the natural world. Right? They're going to show us things. So through observation, that we learned certain things, right?
Sort of
And
like
also-
I think I can't remember if I was talking to you about this. We're talking about what kind of winter we're going to have. And I have lots of friends who own horses, and they can tell if we're going to have a cold winter or not, or if it's going to be a milder winter, according to how their horses' coats are. My grandfather used to look at trees, and he could say, we're going to have this type of fall, or we're going to have this type of winter. And it's fascinating how we as humans tend to think that we're so much smarter, but yet we have to look at nature for answers like that.
And we should look to nature because it knows, like those examples that you gave. I don't know how it knows, but I mean...
But it just does.
We're so disconnected from the natural world. We're not, if we think about indigenous people who are part of it, who are not separate from the natural world, but actually living in it day in and day out and observing and noticing everything around them, we'll miss all these. Like your grandfather's seen something that how many people go to even pay attention or notice something going on with a tree, but that could inform us.
How many nuts is the squirrel trying to gather might give us an indication as well on what kind of winter we're going to be having.
Yeah, like I've never seen. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's somebody that counts, watch the squirrels and counts how many things they collect.
Yeah.
I'm
If
sure
anyone knows,
something.
please contact us.
Yes, call in. It's like I know how many they're collecting this year, and it's going to be one hell of a winter. I'll tell you that. But and with plant medicine, besides from observation of the natural world, there's also journeying to plants. So that's something that a shamanic medicine person would be to do a journey and to get information from the plant. Like, and sometimes it doesn't have to be even as elaborate as doing like a journey. Like if you go out into a meadow or a field, and if you take a moment and you reach down and you touch a plant, and you just kind of ask it like, "Hi there," and like, show me what you're here for. Show me what your power is, what your gift is. And if I've done it where you hold just like one plant, and you might get, oh, I feel this in my lungs, or I feel this in my chest, or I might get an image, and it's like informing you, informs us like, hey, this might be good for the blood. This might, and you ask the questions, like how would you be used? Would it be in a tincture? Would it be in a tea? Would it be in a poultice? And fortunately we have like Google in our smartphones, and then like we can try it, ask the plant, and then cross-reference it with some app and say, oh yeah, well, yeah, I was right about that one. Maybe not that one, but so we have the technology available, and we can kind of see it's like, geez, we're getting this information, we're being informed. How about that? And we don't have to kill Mikey in the process. We can double check to see, is that really going to work? It sure is going to work. So yeah.
Don't have to kill Mikey.
Or whoever.
Maybe that's what I
Yeah.
should call this episode. We don't have to kill Mikey. No.
We have the technology. We don't have to do that.
Yeah. I I'm like I told you the other day, I'm very in tune with animals. Plants not so much. I've literally just from touching a plant killed it. There was one time my husband says, my kids and I were at Walmart, and he says, why don't you pick me up a plant so I can put in my office? I thought, okay. So I saw this really interesting, sorry, there goes my dog with her ticking nails again. I saw this beautiful cactus that I'd never seen before, and it was shaped like a fan. And I thought, oh, wow. So I took a picture of it, sent it to him, and he goes, yeah, that would be great. It's different, you know. So by the time I got to the front of the store to pay for my purchase, it didn't look as pretty. The tips were a little black, and I thought, oh, maybe it's just something that I missed, you know, I didn't notice. By the time I got home, it was literally starting to liquefy, and it was turning black. And when I got home, it was dying, and my husband said, what the heck did you do to it? Is that the same plant that you showed me? I'm like, yes, it's the same plant. And I've done that with other plants. So now my husband and daughter, there's plants all over the house. They absolutely love it. And I am told never to touch any. If I accidentally touch one, my daughter goes over and touches it and says, I'm sorry, my mom didn't mean to touch you, you know, don't die on me. It's so strange how I don't seem to be in tune with the plants like I am with the animals. And I say that my family have green thumbs, but I have a black thumb of death when it comes to plants.
Oh no! Black thumb of death. Oh, geez.
So I don't know if that's something that I have to work on my vibrations to kind of listen to plants and not kill them, or I don't know what it is.
If that's really happening, yeah, it's worth exploring to see what can you learn from that. Like, what's it telling you, and there's always something that we can garner from these kind of things, right? And we can learn from. I don't know. When we were talking about plant medicine, and you mentioned cactus, so what came to my mind? Well, I think of peyote in North America. In South America, I actually participated in a few of these ceremonies. San Pedro. And so, South American tradition, San Pedro is the father of plant medicine, right? And ayahuasca is the mother of plant medicine. So this is shamanic related, right? So through ceremony, through ritual, either, you know, if you've ever heard about ayahuasca, they generally do that at night, and that's the mother, and it's and she's going to take you on a mind expanding trip, right? And you're going to see things, and I haven't done ayahuasca, so I can't really just go blabbering about her. I just know that she's the mother, and she will kick our butts and make you very sick.
Yes.
Now, San Pedro is the father, and you do San Pedro in the daytime, and it is derived from, I believe it's derived from a cactus, and it's like a powder form that you add to warm water and it makes like a tea. You do San Pedro in ceremony, so we're not doing it for recreational purposes, or we're doing this in ceremony to learn something, to grow, to heal. And San Pedro is supposed to be, and is, a little more gentle from what I've been told than the way ayahuasca works. Now, I've done it 3 times, and the first time I took what would be 3 doses of San Pedro. And I could tell you 3 is a little too many, a little bit too much. But it afforded me an opportunity to see things that I would never have seen. And what it showed me is that when you look at everything, the fabric of what all matter is made of. San Pedro can show you all the colors and all the sacred geometry and moving patterns that are happening that we don't normally see. So I could look at a wall on San Pedro and you're like, oh my God, look at it's constantly moving, constantly changing. And if you've ever seen, like in India, in the architecture and like in the pillars and the columns and the sacred geometry and all these fascinating and not random but intricate patterns that are cut into all their architecture, right? Beautiful things that are and shapes and things that are going on. That is but one snapshot in time of something that is in perpetual recreation. Our whole world, when we use something like San Pedro, we suddenly see what it's comprised of, and that it's like you and I, we see the divinity, the sacredness in each other, and it shows us that in this moment of time, that you in this moment are recreating yourself. You are reimagining yourself. You're not fixed. Your body, your cells, everything is in flux and in changing, and you're holding a form, a physical form, for the rest of the world, as we each are holding a form, and it's serving a purpose. And in this moment, we are bearing witness to each other in this moment, right? Because it's like the tree in the forest. If no one was there, did it actually fall? Did anyone hear it? So as I'm looking at you and you're looking at me, we see each other, and this moment will never happen again. You will never appear just this way again, except in digital recordings. Right? But we are bearing witness to each other, and this is, and with San Pedro, it's like we have so much appreciation and love for other human beings that maybe we're kind of maybe closed off to otherwise. And it has a way of pointing out and revealing to us maybe our personal wounds that we are in our blind spot. And there's and I don't want to go on too much about it. It's just that when I came back to the house from the San Pedro, and like I said, 3 was too many. Like 12 or 14 hours, I'm still seeing like the most vibrant colors and things. And I had gone into my friend's bathroom and had some nice tile work done, and there was a little speck of grout on the tile, right? And I was looking at it, and it was moving. And I'm like, what? Oh my God, that grout is still wet. And so I'm touching it, right? You think, oh, this guy is high as can be, right? But that piece of grout, San Pedro showed me that it's still in motion. It's not finished yet. And it's as though you are stepping out of the time that we're in. There's a movie, I think it's a Time Machine or something, and in the machine all the gears and stuff get turning, and the guy is brought through 1,000, sometimes millions of years, right? And he's still in his little pod, but he's seeing all the transformation, and the earth changes, and the animals, and
that's right. I haven't seen that movie in a long time. Yeah,
it's just like that, because I'm seeing that this piece of grout, we think of something solid and formed and it's done and it's dried and that's it. But you know what? Over time, it's going to continue to move. It's going to disintegrate. You could see this. You could see that it was maybe a microscopic move, but it's still in flux, still moving. And to me, that's fascinating, because it shouldn't be still moving, but it's like you're stepping out of time, and things are still going on. It's almost as though nothing is really fixed the way we think of it.
That kind of reminds me of the only way that I could really relate to that is while back, I went out for coffee with a friend of mine. We went to a mutual friend's restaurant, Italian restaurant, and we had iced coffee. And I had like 3 or 4 coffee. Well, I was getting all jittery and realized it wasn't just iced coffee, it was espresso coffee that I was drinking. Now, I drink a lot of coffee, but espresso, it's like 10 cups of coffee in one little, but it tasted so good. So then later on, I texted my friend and I said, oh my God, I had too much coffee. She says, why? I said, because I can hear colors.
Oh.
And she laughed. I couldn't really, but I was just looking at things around me going, oh my God, but yeah, even now she'll jokingly say, how much coffee did you have? Is it a hearing color kind of day?
Wow.
Oh, yeah, it was. I never drank that much espresso in my entire life, and I don't want to do it again. So, like, for you, 3 was too many. Me, I think 4 espressos was too many.
If you ever used to watch Beavis and Butthead, that sounds like Beavis when he would get on Sugar Rush. So, what the heck was the point that?
Just a way of opening your mind, I believe.
Yeah, and there was something. There was something else that that there was another concept too. Is that when you are in that state, in that awareness, like I realized I would never be bored. Like there's no way to be bored, and you would never really feel alone. The sense of being alone and separate. Because sometimes, I know I can feel alone a lot and separate, and with that, it's like you don't feel like you're alone or separate from the collective. You feel like you're part of something more, and you don't feel that disconnect, that separate feeling. And as far as like if everything around you is like constantly changing and moving, it's like there's no way to be bored,
Yeah.
It's like the universe is constantly reimagining itself, constantly recreating itself while holding a form. It's like, mind-blowing.
It's amazing what if you really look, what you can actually see, whether it's with the San Pedro, you called it?
That's San Pedro, yeah.
Whether you're using San Pedro, or seeing things through San Pedro, or too much espresso, or whatever, just if you can let your mind open up, the things that you can actually see.
I mean, weed's kind of more of a common one that most people have probably had some.
And it's legal here in Canada now.
Yeah, it's not even legal. Yeah, but compared to weed, that was so much more.
Weed on steroids.
Something like that. So that, but it's all connected to shamanism, and as a spiritual practice, a spiritual way of being, of learning and healing. It's all part of it, part of ceremony, part of a ritual. We mentioned. Oh, you mentioned about ceremony, and did I cut you off?
No.
Okay, sorry. There was a little sound there.
Oh no, spirits maybe.
What? Maybe the spirits are talking. It's like, quit jabbering about nonsense and talk about something good. I think of some ceremonies like more specific to the north, Plains Indians, like sweat lodge.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I think of sweat lodge. I think of pipe ceremony. I have mixed feelings about the sun dance, but that's another thing. And but definitely, like the sweat is a powerful ceremony and a beautiful ceremony, and pipe too. I assume maybe I don't know if you've had the opportunity to participate in sweat.
No, I haven't.
And sweat's an example too of where a lot of tribes lost that knowledge. And I had the opportunity to sweat up in Alberta on two of the reserves, one on the Pecani and one on the Blood Reserve, with wonderful people. And the first the second sweat that I attended was on the Pecani Reserve, and the gentleman that was the pora and the host and performing the ceremony, though he's Blackfoot, he went to I don't know if it was Pine Ridge or Rosebud. He went to the Lakota tribe back in the 70s, and that's where, because they had lost their specific traditional way, even though sweat is basically universal, nobody really has dibs on owning the sweat ceremony, but the way that it was performed among the Blackfoot was essentially lost. So they went, or this gentleman, he went, his name's Morris Littlewolf. He went to the Lakota, and he brought back the sweat to his people. And so it's just an example of trying to bring back ceremony and information and knowledge, but where you find it, where it still lives in certain pockets or places or within different people. It seems like the Lakota held on to
a lot of traditions.
More. Yeah, like they seem to somehow. So people from other tribes, if they've lost theirs, they might seek out something like going to the Lakota and say, hey, can we show us the way that you do it?
Can you explain what is involved in Sweat Lodge? What? Because I have no idea what happens. The procedure.
Yeah, there's commonalities too in the structure. So the Sweat Lodge is a circle, and just like the teepee, right? And this symbolically, this circle. There's lots of symbology and representation in it. Traditionally, like the sweat wasn't for women.
Oh, really?
Traditionally, now today, women attend sweat. But also, if you think about it, women had their red tent kind of thing going on, because of the monthly cycle, right? Had a way of naturally cleansing and purifying their bodies, and men don't have that ability. So if you imagine a low dome-shaped tent with, and if anyone's listening and corrects me, because if I make a mistake, I'm sorry, but I'm trying to remember everything. And then it's made of willow. So and I'm trying to remember exact number of willow that go for the structure, right? And I won't say the number, but sometimes it might depend on the size of the lodge too. But the number is significant, and then they're gently and slowly bent to make the dome shape. So then you weave the willow into the shape of the lodge, and you pile on. It would have been buffalo hide, but today it's like put on a tarp and blankets and as much so you can hold the heat. In the center, there's a pit, and then usually out the door, it should be facing the east, traditionally, because everything, we face the east, the beginning, the dawn of a new day. And there'll be a fire not far from the opening of the lodge, and in the fire there are the grandfathers. So there's stones that have been gathered, and they're getting super hot, right? They're going to be glowing red, and the grandfathers generally are collected near rivers. They're kind of like lava rock. If you look at their makeup, they're kind of lava like. Yeah, and numbers and cycles and everything's important. So with the sweat, there's 4 rounds. Okay, and 4 rounds, there's 4 seasons. So whoever is, if you've been to a traditional one, you go in, you might talk a bit. You might share a meal, a traditional meal, like just a light meal, not a lot, because who wants to throw up in a sweat lodge? Because it's close,
You're too
right?
full. Big turkey
So,
dinner.
yeah, no, you're not gonna like. It's just a light meal, all right?
Mhm.
So, not like, and sharing a light meal and talk a little bit, and then there's an assistant outside who will bring the stones into the center, and when as they're preparing that, they're dropping sage and cedar on the and today's usually like a man and a woman, and the women will seat on the left side of the lodge, and the men generally sit on the right. And guys are like usually like in swim trunks or something, and women are like in just a very light gown or something like that. And once whoever's running it, the pora, he will say, I want so many grandfathers to begin with, so maybe it would be 4. There's a method and a reason to it. And if this is done in integrity, then the pora, the leader, the head of this lodge, he's going to pour for the weakest person there. We've heard of some tragedies and things going wrong, and where this ceremony was bastardized, to turn it into some kind of competition. That's not the idea of the sweat. So when it's being done in a good way, Pora's looking out for the weakest person there, and he's not going to give them any more than they can handle. We're not here to kill each other. We're here to cleanse and to be with spirit. So you bring the rocks in. You open sacred space at the beginning, which is universal. I don't care where you are in the world, what tribe, what people. The pipe's part of the ceremony.
Mhm.
So the pipe, the medicine pipe, is part of this. Buffalo skull for this tradition. Bring the stones, and then the doors are closed, and there should be like no light in this lodge. And it's almost like you're going back to the womb of the mother.
Oh.
So you're back in the womb.
Mm-hmm.
And you have the smells of like cedar and these beautiful smells, and then you start pouring water on the rocks, and then it starts getting like really hot, really, really, really
Steamy.
hot. Yes, and I tell you, if it gets too much, trying to get down close to the ground, if you get in trouble, it's okay. If you have to leave, you have to leave. But if you get down low, chances are you'll be okay. And what happens is each round has an intention and a purpose, and there's a reason for each round, and there's prayer. Right? There's a prayer, and then immediately once the water starts, there's a drumming, and the song starts, and you don't even have to know the song or what it is, but if you've heard native drumming and singing, it's just beautiful. Yeah. And sometimes there's something about it that it's like you know it even if you don't really know it, and just kind of hum along or do what you can, And it's like the drumming and the singing kind of carry you when you probably would want to tap out. It's that community of like, we're all in this together. Mm-hmm. And it's like I feel like it gives you the strength to make it through the round. It's like you're being supported in the singing, and then when the song's over, the door opens, and at least in this particular tradition, and you can bail out for a little bit, cool off. Mm-hmm. And it's usually like by the second or third round when it can get really intense. You're like, oh, good Lord, this is too much.
Why did I do this?
I'm gonna die. But no, you're gonna be right.
How long does each round last, or is there a specific amount of time?
For the round? Mm-hmm. The round is usually for a song.
Okay.
How long the song drags out, that's another story. I've been to some where they've done 4 songs. I think 4 is too many, but 1 song per round feels pretty good. Mm-hmm. and then you take a break. So then the whole thing, there is 4 rounds, and each one has an intention. You could be praying for people, your family, your loved ones, your relatives, yourself. There's a method to it, and so at the end it concludes. So you've had these 4 rounds, and to me it's like this is the indigenous church, right? You've gone
Yes.
back to the mother. You've sweated out your demons, your negativities, your heavy energy. You've really cleansed yourself, and you've been in prayer and in this tantric kind of state with the drumming and the singing, the chanting kind of singing. And at the end of 4 rounds, that might take a couple hours, or it takes a bit of time depending on how fast things move along. And for example, the first time I went, I did it on the blood reserve, and it was really intense. And I happened to just so time it where I had the opportunity to do a sweat on the next day. Right? And of course, you want to drink water when you're doing these things too. The first day, it was rough, and I said, "Oh, I don't know if I ever want to do this again." The second time at the other reserve, I did it, and it was probably just as hot. But what you got to know is, like, because I had already sweat, I had already been kind of cleaned of all my heavy energy, all the baggage and crap that I'm carrying with me, right? All that hoocha. So when this finished, and I'm looking around, I'm feeling great on my second sweat. I'm looking around, there's carnage all around me. There's people like laying on the ground that look like they're dying. It's like, and I'm like, well, what's wrong with these people? Because I feel good. But I felt good in my mind because I've already I went through it the day before, and I'm coming to this ceremony, with a light spirit, with a light heart, and it just makes a difference. Because it's like that's the end result, that you've been lightened through this ceremony, and now you're ready to take things on that, and I was like, bring it on.
They must have thought, Jesus, this guy's one tough one.
But they didn't know I already been cleaned up the day before. So yeah, and the more stuff that you're carrying, and the more energy, that's probably going to it's going to take a toll
Wear you
on
out,
you.
yeah.
But in a good way. In a good way. So, so that's my experience with sweat, anyways. And usually afterwards, it's followed with a really nice potluck dinner or something. And
Nice.
It's a one. I wish that it was everybody's church. Like, as long as you could do it in the right way, in a good way. It's just beautiful.
Is it always, you said they use sage and cedar? Is it always sage and cedar that they use? Or does it?
Yeah, well, it's sweetgrass. Sweetgrass is part
okay.
of it. And maybe there might be a few other things to sprinkle on. Maybe some pixie dust, I don't know. See, whatever you got. But those are the staples, right? Those are pretty much, you always got to have that.
Those are the universal ones again, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're going to call her here. It's been almost 2 hours.
We've been chewing it that long?
Yeah. It just like the other night when we spoke, it doesn't seem like that much time has gone by. You're soft-spoken and easygoing and down to earth, and just time just doesn't seem to move when we're talking.
Well, that's good. But the only problem is I didn't tell you a single ghost story, a single experience.
We can do that for the next time that I have you on, if you're willing to come on.
Yeah, not a one. Like, how your listeners going to be impressed when they didn't even hear one ghost story, not even one.
Well, they'll have to stay tuned for your next episode.
Yeah, no alien stories, no Bigfoot stories. Like, come on, what is this?
So why don't you tell? Sorry, say again.
So hopefully, yeah, if we get to do this again, maybe.
Oh,
we
for
can,
sure. Yeah.
stay focused and
Yes.
just go stories, just supernatural stories. That's it.
Well, I've branched out. Like I mentioned the other day, when I first started, I just thought paranormal was ghosts, and then I realized no, it's not just ghosts. It could be cryptids like Bigfoot or Mandela effect, or any strange occurrences. Anything that's just not normal, or what we consider not normal, can be paranormal. So, yeah, I've branched out.
Very good. Very good. Oh, you were going to ask me how someone might find me?
Yes, you read my mind.
That's because I'm a shaman. No, I guess I knew you were going to ask that.
Yeah, we discussed it earlier.
Yeah, not that good. Yeah, I'm on Facebook. Um, my full name, you can find me Leslie James Hart, Shaman. So I'll share things on that. I do a little paranormal page, Heart Paranormal, and you do Paranormal Heart.
I know. That was
So-
so when you first started following me on Instagram, I think it was, and I'm like, this is like the inverse, like Paranormal Heart and Heart Paranormal. I was like, this is amazing.
And I just did it as well.
Because
as
of your
a story.
name.
Right. And so instead of using my last name, I just said I'll just use Hart because that's synonymous and sounds. It's better to say Hart. Yeah, and so we're just the inverse. So
Yeah.
there's that. I got a page and a group for that, and also I have a website called by my name. But if the URL or is the shamanhealerwarrior.com,
Okay.
and then my mug will pop up from. But there's some stuff on there, but I need to get adding more material to it. And I'm available for to do one-on-one healing sessions. I'm available to do consults with groups or people who are individuals or families who might be having some kind of paranormal activity. Possibly I might be able to do I'm intuitive. I might be able to get some information, more further insights, and might also be able to help come up with a strategy to kind of it's like the commercial. They tell you you have a problem, and then well, okay, now what? We're just here to tell you have a problem, and